Welcome to a new update. Today we're going to talk about the altcoins and the effect of the outlook of 2024 for altcoins. As Bitcoin has been getting the ETF approval, we have seen a case of momentum into Bitcoin, as Bitcoin has been running from $25,000 to $45,000 and even $49,000 on the day of the live trading on the spot ETF. Last Thursday. We're going to discuss everything surrounding the ETF for a little bit, but we're going to focus more or less on the altcoins, because the altcoins are the most important part for you guys, as that's definitely the way to make money, but also to lose money. So we're going to talk about the outlook of altcoins in 2024. But before we can continue, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to this YouTube channel, and also make sure to check out the other social media channels where I'm posting long reads on X, and I'm going to start posting on Instagram really soon as well. The trading course will be live really soon. And if you are looking for additional advice for your portfolio in the upcoming bull market, we've got the consultancy where we assist you one-on-one. We have been doing 25% in the past few weeks while Bitcoin has been going sideways. So make sure to reach out in the comment section or in the description beneath. And also thank you Bitfavo, which is my go-to exchange for swing trading altcoins. It is very cheap, it's very easy, it can be used all across Europe. You can buy and sell all the altcoins you want. And it's by far the easiest exchange to start trading from. So if you are getting yourself there, make sure to use Bitfavo. Now, when we talk about the ETF, we can see that the spot ETF, as you can see on the screen, has been approved by the SEC. That is great. The trading has been started on January the 11th. It was all on the Nasdaq, CBOE, and even more of those exchanges. And the net inflow on the first day was 600 million, which was tremendous. So there was a large interest into the ETF. That's a good sign. Means that it's an historical day as well. But the actual impact of such an event will take place over the coming 12 to 24 months. I've discussed this on the previous update yesterday, and I've been giving you my theory behind it entirely in that update. So I'm not going to be disturbing you again with a view of me on the Bitcoin ETF, but we're going to talk about the impact that it will have on altcoins, because since the ETF was approved, we saw Ethereum breaking out. We saw the entire Ethereum ecosystem running away. We saw Ethereum name services doing well, SUI doing well, Scale doing well, many projects doing well, which means that despite the fact that there is an ETF being approved, the cycles still exist, and the path in the markets are still comparable to the previous cycles that we have been witnessing in the market. So we're going to focus on that. But before we continue, we need to look at the Bitcoin perspective and show you a little bit of the Bitcoin TA that is important to understand before we can continuing with this update. So what we see here is a price pattern that is very much comparable to the price pattern we witnessed in 2016, right? So 2016, we had a first breakout, we had a sideways pad, and we had a massive breakout again, and then we had a sideways period from June all the way towards December. So 6 months before we started to break the highs, and that was the moment and the start of a big bull cycle, as in the year after, Bitcoin rallied from $800 towards 20k. And most likely, the chances are there is the current cycle of 2021 is going to look the exact same. So what we see here with 2017 and 2021, but also what we see here with 2017 compared to 2013, it's very likely that at some point in time you will be seeing the chart of the 2017 peak to be very slim to the current cycle, which means that somewhere here we're probably going to peak out, meaning that we probably are not going to go back to those prices at all, especially after this ETF. The chance of us hitting those lows are pretty slim. However, the important part is that pre-halving, you usually have the pre-halving run. We had a first run, we had a sideways period, we had another run, and now we are consolidating, through which we might not be going sideways as long as we can see here, but we are most likely going to have a path of sideways action overall. So even if we get towards the stage of July or September of sideways patterns, it seems very likely that we're going to have it, given the fact that pre-halving Bitcoin peaks out for a little bit and goes sideways, given the fact that Bitcoin has been running from 25k to 50k and needs some peace in mind before we can continue showing strength, and also because money needs to rotate through the markets, as I think that the Ethereum ETF is going to take over the entire momentum. We have been discussing this in the previous weeks already, and now we can discuss it again. But what we can see here is the Ethereum ETF deadlines. All right, so the next deadline that we have on this is actually really close. It is at the 5th of January. We're probably going to get a delay, or yeah, probably going to get a delay. And the final deadline is going to be somewhere in August, or actually in May. So I think that somewhere in this ballpark of the summer, we are going to get a case that the markets are going to get into some more momentum, and that Ethereum is going to get the approval for the ETF as well. So what you see right now is the swap from Bitcoin towards Ethereum. Bitcoin has seen its first run. Bitcoin has seen the strength. Bitcoin is consolidating. Money goes through the entire market, and other ecosystems are going to wake up. And Bitcoin just did a 2x. So you can basically say that if Ethereum is going to do the exact same, it's going to do even more, and perhaps even get towards 4.2k, all right, or even higher. So there's a lot of momentum going to happen from Ethereum, and it's very comparable to the pattern that we witnessed in 2015, 2016. And in that aspect, we need to look at the Bitcoin dominance, which, as a matter of fact, is having a pretty heavy rejection here, right? So we didn't even get as high as we wanted. We didn't get towards 57%, but we were able to have a long rally during the period of the Bitcoin strength, which was also the case since we have been peaking here in 2018. But even though since 2019 to the pre-halving rally we took place on the Bitcoin dominance, it happened, and since then it was down only. The same has been taking place in 2015, in which we saw a rally on the Bitcoin dominance based on the fact that the hype is surrounding the Bitcoin halving and Bitcoin itself. And now it's rotating towards altcoins as pre-halving, 3 to 6 months pre-halving. In this case, it is again the fact that approximately 3 to 8 months prior to it, it's the best period to buy your altcoins, which has been shown and proven that it's the case. It is again the fact, and we see that the Bitcoin dominance starts to fall. So money is rotating. It's very likely that the high of 55% is going to stay as the high for this entire cycle for the Bitcoin dominance, which means that if we swap it towards Ether against Bitcoin, we can actually see a massive candle here, and it shows a bullish divergence on a weekly time frame. It's not often that you can see a bullish divergence on a weekly time frame. Actually, it hasn't been giving any. We have seen one here during a bear market cycle in which we made a new low. So in this case, the chances of us to continue from here are very, very likely. And I think that we're going to have a very strong move on Ethereum comparable to what we have witnessed previously. So you need to be buying the dip on Ether. We have been taking liquidity here, and we have seen that reversal signal, which means that the spot Ethereum ETF is definitely going to take the spotlight at this point. But in between, we will be continuing to have corrections on the markets based on perhaps CPI going up again, based on the halving, which usually requires a sell-off, based on the fact that the Ethereum ETF is most likely going to have a few delays before it can be approved. So now the question is, how can you decide which altcoins you need to invest in? And then you are looking at several altcoin charts, which is, and I'm going to use a few examples for this. First of all, you need to look at the Bitcoin pair. And in this case, I'm looking at SUI against Bitcoin, which has been following the path, which is, we have seen a long downwards pattern here. We are making a retest and making higher lows. So the structure is switching. That is the first one. We are making higher lows, higher highs. Massive breakout, reach the first take profit level, but most likely we're going to continue this upwards trend as we just have started this entire push to the upwards momentum. And given the fact that it's showing strength against Bitcoin, that is when you make more Bitcoin. And ultimately, your goal is to make more Bitcoin in this market and to time the market well. That's what we specialize on. That's how you make money. Another example that we have is Arbitrum against Bitcoin. Again, downwards trend taking place, bounce up, rejected, but creating higher lows, broke through the upwards resistance and starts to make higher lows and even beautiful retests. So you can see that this one is continuing the upwards trend. It's even up approximately 120% in the BTC pair since the 8th of December. The weekly chart is looking tremendous when we are looking at this. So the chances that this is going to continue is definitely there. However, when we are looking at some altcoins that have not been running well yet, this means that you can start identifying entry points. So what we see with SUI, we see a big upwards trend occurring here, and there's more likely going to come. Arbitrum is the same case. Now Chainlink is on the edge of starting a new run based on the fact that it needed a correction before it can actually start breaking out. So the first signals of a DeFi summer are here. When we go back in time, we had the exact same structure in 2019-2020. Breakout, heavy correction, breakout, heavy correction, breakout, heavy correction. It's the same pattern in which Chainlink against Bitcoin again has seen strength, drop back down, now back up showing strength, and very likely going to continue showing strength for the upcoming period, as also the USDT pair is still holding up to important levels to hold, which means that there is going to be a continuation on this taking place. Chainlink against Bitcoin, it's a signal. It is showing the exact same pattern as what SUI has been doing. However, it's still at an early stage. So what does it show? It shows the case of this, which is a retest and most likely an upwards trend afterwards. So now you can start identifying areas of entry where you want to get into a position if you want to get confirmations. And I'll explain it in a little bit. But now you can start seeing and spotting strengths and weaknesses between the pairs. Now you can also start looking at Ether pairs, and for instance Solana against Ether is one that has been dropping massively since we have seen the entire run. Money rotates, so money goes from high projects towards high projects towards high projects, and Solana has seen a period of strength. Hype is going away, so probably we're going to have something like this, and then we can start seeing a new cycle. At this point, after this run, it has been going up 5 to 6x since the low. There's no point in jumping on a bandwagon for Solana, despite if you're looking at a bounce here. The trend is clearly downwards, and against Ethereum, it means that if you are looking to trade these two pairs, that the data is showing you an example that being into Ether right now makes more sense. Although, if Solana against ETH reaches this area, perhaps you can make some money from swapping from Ether to Solana for a quick bounce and then back towards Ethereum again. Inch against ETH, also it's a relatively new pair, but it also shows you the exact same thing at this point, in which Inch is dropping down from an high. It is down approximately 40%, and Inch against Bitcoin is just consolidating, but you can see that it is just a rotation through cycles, right? So how can you actually trade those assets at this point? Well, there are three important factors to take into account. First of all, the first important factor is that you should be looking at an uptrend in BTC pair and the USDT pair. So for instance, what we discussed, and I'm going to use two altcoins for this. We make an actual low, we break out here, and the breakout level becomes the actual support, right? So we break to the upwards momentum, find ourselves into resistance comparable to what Bitcoin is going to do at this level at 48k, break back to the downwards areas of this range, find ourselves on support, which is on the previous resistance, continue to go sideways, break out again, which identifies a higher high, retest, created, and now we're looking at higher high, higher lows. It's very likely that we're not going to get a deep correction as we have been seeing here, but at least we can confirm that we are into a higher high, higher low structure, into an uptrend on SUI against Bitcoin. SUI against USDT, that's the second pair of confirmation, is showing the exact same pattern, right? Constant flips taking place, which show you that there is strength in the markets, and if this continues to go, and even if we get a correction towards 96 cents, which I think is very unlikely at this point, perhaps at a later point, but at least you can see positive support resistance flips and continuation of the upwards trend, signaling that there's a likely occurrence of continuation. So you've got two arguments right now, which is strength against Bitcoin, strength against USDT, and you can add strength against ETH, but this is what you need. Now, the second pair that I want to look at is the fact Chainlink against USDT. Questionable whether it's in an uptrend. Based on the weekly time frame, definitely. Based on the daily time frame, we are not sure because we made a lower low. What you want to see in that case is that we hold this level here. So we create a higher low, start creating higher highs. That is the first confirmation. So you need more approval to get into this one. Based on the BTC pair, we can actually see that we are currently at the stage of making ourselves into a higher low and higher high, which means that the higher high is established, we create a higher low, and we are looking for a lower time frame confirmation. Then we can start attacking the highs again, and therefore also attacking the USDT pair. So these are lower confidence confirmations of an asset going into the trend that we just witnessed with SUI. So now that is confirmed, and you need to be looking at confirmation on the higher time frame. So for instance, for Link, this support resistance flip is comparable to the start of SUI. We retest this level. That is your higher time frame entry point, which usually requires time before getting into it. This also means that taking a position here, you can start targeting wider take profit. So perhaps even 6,600 sats. Same can be done for SUI against Bitcoin, which at this point has been seeing that beautiful retest and which has been seeing a beautiful breakout as it has been rallying with around 70 to 80% since. So what can you look at potential entry points? Well, you can start looking at identifying resistance points becoming support again in the actual trend, which makes 2100 an entry point at a later point in time. And then you need to start zooming in, and you can find additional confirmations, which are these previous highs or even this high that you can see at the area of 2600 sats, but that is lower time frames. Now, the second thing, or the final thing that I would like to discuss with you, is if you identify those levels and those support resistance flips, you need to be patient. You need to understand opportunity cost between things like Solana or any other pair. And then finally, you need to come up with a strategy in which you scale in, scale out. So if, like for instance, you get into the area of this entry point and there are a ton of altcoins still ready to break to the upside. For instance, Algorand basically is just waking up. It didn't see anything yet. So there's still a lot of upside to go from that one. Cosmos barely just waking up. There's still so much to gain for this one as well. So what you need to do is that you need to scale in. So if you say, hey, I want to start getting interested into SUI Bitcoin in that pair, you can start saying, hey, I want to scale some in here, I scale some in here, and I've got a final back so that I've got a nice entry point if we get there. I start to get 20% in here, 40% in here, 40% in here in case. You will never be allocated fully. If you do, you've got a nice average price, but in this strategy you always need to have ammunition left to be able to consider buying the dip. And if it goes back up, you can start selling 20% here, 40% here, and 40% there to make sure that you can always just at least have profits and make sure that you claim the profit and then move on. So that is what I'm looking at when it comes to altcoins and trading them. Now going back towards Bitcoin and ETH, I think that at this point the most likely scenario is that we have an upwards run for Bitcoin again. Then we can start falling back down, go back up for the Bitcoin halving and just have this sideways pattern. I think it's going to be crucial for Bitcoin to reject it like 46,000 and then have a slight downwards pattern taking place before we get into the halving hype for a little bit. And in between, altcoins are going to do really, really well. This means that most likely Ether is still going to have a bit more of correction taking place, then continues to move, correction, continues to move, and that's going to be the pattern towards $4,000. Hit like. I'll see you again next week. Ciao.